Hello and welcome to Kettle and Bones, where we make really delicious, really healthy food. And you can too. So, you may not know it yet, but we've actually been preparing for today's episode for nearly a year now. We've been slowly accruing both the skills and the raw materials for today's recipe since early on in Series 1. We'll be making a delicious sweet treat from something that you may already have plenty of in your fridge. You'll see what I mean once we get going, so let's get right into it. Today, we're making meringue drops. Let's get cooking. So, remember how I said we've been prepping for today's recipe for a long time? If you've been following Kettle and Bones for a while now, making our weekly recipes, there's a good chance that you have one of these in your fridge right now. It's a jar full of egg whites. If you made the creamy Caesar salad in Series 1, Episode 14, or the deluxe mayonnaise in Series 1, Episode 16, or just last week, Series 2, Episode 3, the blue cheese dressing for our wedge salad, all of those begin with egg yolks. Just the egg yolks. So we've been saving the egg whites from all those dressings and sauces. Today, we're going to use these excess egg whites to make a whimsical dessert treat in the form of meringue. So just like all those times we've made cloud bread together, in a large bowl, we're going to add some of our egg whites. This is probably 8 to 10 eggs worth, and a dash of cream of tartar, probably half a teaspoon or so, to help stabilize our meringue. Now we mix. A lot. Ultimately, we're looking for a thick, foamy mixture that's capable of holding stiff peaks. Before we get to that point though, when our mixture is getting thicker but still not quite stiff and peaky, we're going to add some sweetener. Of course, traditional sweet meringue recipes call for sugar. Lots of sugar, up to double the amount of egg whites used. That's a lot. Too much, if you ask me. I'm using powdered erythritol sweetener, sugar-free, and I'm just going to do maybe a quarter cup. It's always kind of a balancing act when you're using non-sugar sweetener. Too much of it and your final result will have a very artificial kind of sickly sweet flavor to it. Too little and it's just not sweet enough and kind of bland. I've experimented with this sweet meringue for a while now, enough to know that this amount of sweetener should be just about right. With our meringue now flavored, we're going to whisk again for a couple more minutes until the meringue is really thick. You should see these waves and ridges forming as you mix that hold their shape even if you jiggle or tip the bowl. This is the right consistency now, so we're going to set ourselves up to form these into nice bite-sized drops. A tall container will be a helpful tool for doing this. I'm using a plastic storage container, but a large jar or maybe even a vase would work. If you own a pastry piping bag, go ahead and use that. I don't. I'm usually not that much of a pastry person, so I'm using a standard plastic storage bag, and I'm going to turn it inside out and place it over my tall container so that one of the bottom corners is standing up. I will ultimately be cutting this corner off to make the hole to pipe the meringue out of. First though, I'd like to add a little color. I'm using a paintbrush to paint gel food coloring in stripes along what will be the inside of the piping bag. I'm going to go with alternating blue and yellow stripes. If you only have liquid food coloring, that's not going to be paintable in a stripe configuration, but you can experiment with sprinkling a few drops in the meringue and then lightly stirring a few times to get a streaky, swirled effect. The food coloring is optional, of course. It won't affect the flavor, but it just makes the finished result look a little nicer, hopefully. With the stripes painted, I'm going to make sure this is sitting securely on top of my tall container, and I'm going to fill it with meringue. As the meringue gets squeezed out of the bag, it will pick up the coloring in a more or less striped pattern. As I close this up, the meringue will help to turn the corner of the bag right side out, and a gentle squeeze will help that happen as well. Let's set that to the side for just a moment. And with the rest of the meringue, I want to experiment a little with some unsweetened cocoa powder. Not too much, I don't want to upset the consistency of the meringue. And because this cocoa powder is unsweetened, I'm going to add just a bit more erythritol sweetener to keep this from tasting bitter. And into the bag it goes. Now, on 2 parchment-lined baking trays, we're going to arrange our meringue drops for baking. To turn our ordinary plastic bags into pastry applicators, we're just going to snip off the corner of the bag. Easy breezy. Then, using gentle, even pressure on the bag, we're going to squirt dollops of meringue, leaving plenty of space between them for air to circulate. The blue and yellow food coloring ran together a little bit in some places, but not too bad. We got some nice bright stripes on several of these. If you use colors that are similar to each other, red and yellow for example, or pink and purple, you can get a really cool gradient effect as the colors run into each other. I tried this once with blue and green. Came out really nice. We'll do the same with our monochrome chocolate drops. By the way, if the little mountain peak shape isn't your favorite, you could make little spiral swirls, or if you have a piping bag with pastry tips, obviously you can make these in a whole bunch of different shapes, little stars, shells, clovers, etc. These are going into a very low oven, just 200 degrees Fahrenheit, about 93 degrees Celsius, for 1 hour. And then, after 1 hour, just turn off the heat. Don't touch them, don't open the door, nothing. These will be fragile and we need to let them cool completely before we touch them. After they have cooked for an hour and rested for an additional hour, we can take these out of the oven and voila! These are looking good. If you still feel that the tray has some warmth in it, you'll need to let these continue to cool before gently peeling them off the parchment paper. These are light, airy, and fragile, so be careful. We got a nice bit of color diversity in our yellow and blue batch. Some of these are a little more vibrant, others have softer, more faded colors. Our chocolate drops are, well, brown, as you'd expect, but the subtle chocolate flavor is really nice. These are actually my favorite of the two varieties we're making today. And there you have it. Airy, mildly sweet little kisses of meringue, great as a light dessert or a sweet snack, and a fabulous use for all those extra egg whites you've been saving. Stay with Kettle and Bones for many, many more easy recipes that will help you keep real, whole food ingredients at the front and center of your low-carb or keto-compliant meal plan, even the desserts. But for now, just enjoy your meringue drops.